Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Kim Aronson. He's the creator of 20 self-help books in his Wisdom Manual series. He's an intuitive reader and coach who guides individuals towards a more conscious life. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show, Kim. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about artificial intelligence, we'll talk about writing, and we'll also talk about human connection. But before this, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, so that listeners know who they are listening to.
Okay. I would just say I was just in India 4.5 months last year, and I really enjoyed it. That's a wonderful place. I want to go back. But thank you for having me. Well, my journey is I have done a lot of different things in my life. I lived in Denmark. I was born in Copenhagen, and I met an American woman, and we got married. So I moved to the US in '97, and in Denmark, I worked with kids in therapy. And when I moved to the US, I started working with the internet. I did web design. And part of that was I created my own little social network website. And out of that came a dating site that was sort of surprising to myself. But I ended up owning and creating several dating sites for many years between '99 and 2013. So that's what I did for a long time. In the meantime, I also trained as an intuitive reader and a psychic. And that was something I did for a good 17 years. And that's been a private practice I've had since 2006. And fasting forward, now I'm living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I always wanted to express myself. So I've done many different things. I've done sculptures and not writing, sculptures and paintings and video and photography, but I was never really good at writing. I'm dyslexic, and also English is not my first language. So I really couldn't express myself that way, and I always missed that. Until in the end of 2022, I was actually in India, and I was sitting and fiddling around with on the internet, and I discovered something called AI and GPT, and I'm like, that's interesting. And I started to play around with that, and that's really how it started with me starting to write books and with the help of AI. And I've just published my 28th books. All my books are about self-help books, about self-development, about spirituality, basically.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kim. So I want to understand first about your dating sites itself. Especially in the '90s, end of '90s and early
Yeah.
2000. Why so many dating sites? Means was there a good demand for that in whatever you are doing? How did that thing happen?
Well, it back then it wasn't really that big. When I had a social network website in Denmark, actually, what called Mandela, and it was really for spiritual people who how they connect with each other. They could make their own website, and there was a forum, and I made a whole expert area where people who had alternative treatments, they could be asked questions. So that's how it started. And I kept adding functions to this website. So I had a forum, and I had a quote of the day and stuff like that. And then one of the things I decided to do is just to make a little area where maybe people could find, a partner, or, somebody to date. And I didn't think much about it, but I decided to call it Soulmate. So there was just a little sub area of my social network website. But in the beginning of 2000, it really grew really fast. So I ended up separating it out to having a separate dating site. And eventually I had one in the US too. And back then in the beginning of 2000, it was, it was popular, but there wasn't that many of them. And I think what happened I would say 2005 and 6, venture capital VCs, they figured out there was a lot of money in dating sites, so they put a lot of money into it. So it became a really big business, because it is a big business and there's a lot of money to earn in dating site. And I would say for people, it felt back then, it felt like a good way, I think, to connect, an easy way to connect with other people that were singles and finding a date, you know. And it's interesting you should mention it, because in a month is Valentine's Day, and this month up to Valentine's Day, it's the biggest time for dating sites. And I actually just published a book about online dating and how to do it in a better way. And this month, from today, the 14th, and the next month, the book is free on my website, wisdommanuals.com. And so it's also an audio book. I give it away for free, so people can kind of get a better experience of being on an online dating site, because it's a jungle to go through.
Absolutely, it's a jungle to go to, especially in today's time. So I want to understand. You see, dating sites, then you will psychic also, and
Yeah,
then self-help books. And
yeah,
what I understand is you use psychology, spirituality, and real life experiences. Explore topics like love, relationships, dating, self-awareness, individuation, and explore and the power of integrating wisdom into everyday moment. For a
yeah.
general person, if they want to understand, how should they understand what is Kim trying to do? Is he trying to be the most biggest benefactor of the humanity in terms of love, relationship, everything that is possible to take them to the next level?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. In my many years of doing intuitive readings for people, and also through my training, what I learned, and that I feel is the most valuable thing for us when we're here on earth, is to be a little more conscious about ourselves. So raise our consciousness. And if we can do that just a little bit, I think we would have a better life. Sorry. So I think that's the purpose of all the readings I'm doing. And actually, not to be too technical, but the point of intuitive reading is to give people information that just a little bit out of their range of consciousness at the moment, but not so far away that they wouldn't understand it when I tell them. So when I read somebody, I feel into their consciousness level, and my point is to raise it just a little bit, so they get a little more conscious about their own lives. And because of my training, and because of I've seen that work, that is really what all my books are about. They're all about how do you become more conscious. So I have a whole series about how do you become conscious in all kinds of different life situations. One of the funny one is, how do you become more conscious when you are driving in traffic, for instance? So my whole point with my books is to raise consciousness, to be a little more aware of your everyday life. And I would say merging that into AI, because I get a little bit of flack for people saying, oh, you're not really writing books. And that's true. I'm creating books. I'm not an author in a traditional way. I don't write every word. But I thought about it this way. People can think about it this way. AI, it's like AI filling in the blanks, right? So you sort of have to be really good at asking the right question to get some right answers. And those answers I then use to create my book. And it's not just like people think, and I see online on Instagram, write a book in 2 minutes. That's not how it is. If you want to write a book that has good material and that's useful for people, you have to work with it. And you also have to understand what you're doing. I think with nonfiction, it's a little harder, because it actually has to have some relevance for people's lives. I think in fictional stories, it might be easier. Yeah, I don't write fictions. But in nonfiction, you have to know what you are asking for, and you have to know what comes out, and if it's useful for people. And then you put it together in a book. So is that an answer?
Yes, yes, indeed. And you see, at one point in time, you said English is not your first language, and now you are using artificial intelligence to express yourself
Yeah.
very well, and not one but 20 self-help books, and perhaps more coming. So I want to understand. You see, you are writing non-fiction with AI.
Mhm.
Means fiction is understandable, but how do you explain the non-fiction part?
Yeah, yeah.
How much does AI know about real life?
No, that's a really good question. How does AI know about real life? Like, that is a great question, and I'm something I still ask myself all the time. I think for me, okay, two things with AI. One is it feels very much like wrestling. I'm wrestling with somebody who's really strong. Like, am I gonna win? Are they gonna win? Because AI is interesting, very intelligent, and very stupid at the same time, and you got to know that. So the whole point about writing with AI is really to know that what you put in comes back. So if you put bad things in or not very intelligent things in, you don't get very good things back. And I'm still on a mission to see how much wisdom I can squeeze out of AI. But of course, I can only see its wisdom if I have some wisdom myself. But I only know what comes out if it's good, if I can interpret it, right? And I can use it and I can translate it into a book that people can actually feel that's useful. But that's really I'm still asking myself the question, what is how much wisdom is in AI? But I would say though that I don't think AI has only the wisdom that the person who's asking the question has in some ways. You can't really elevate your own wisdom by using AI, but you can help AI interpret your own wisdom, and it can be a useful tool. But for you to use AI in a wiser way, you actually have to be wiser yourself too. So it's kind of a back and forth. But I think there's something you can learn from AI, but mostly I think AI is learning from you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a wisdom, it's a cohesion of all the wisdom that has been put into AI. AI has learned, and in a great way, it is trying to give you. But in terms of when you talk about love, relationships, and everything else, sometimes do you feel that thing that you are asking AI about creating such a book, which is about, again, about feelings about things, as they say AI does not have any feelings, and then also perhaps does not know about the real world. Do you ever get into that feeling, or it was earlier there but it's not because you have already gained so much, more than 20 books?
Let me see if I understand your question. I again, I don't feel that AI is. I am the one who's making AI answer the right questions. For me, so there's a couple of translation that happens. For me to putting into AI, that's one translation. I'm trying to communicate like we are with people. What am I asking for? What am I wanting? And then AI is answering back. That's another translation. Now I had to translate or interpret what they are asking, what they're telling me. And then the last translation is I put it into a book in a certain form. And that's me translating what AI said into something that I then want people to understand. And that's sort of where the magic happens, I would say. If I didn't if I don't put it in a book in the right way, I don't understand it myself. I don't agree with what I put in, which I think sometimes happen with people who just make a book by pressing a button. I don't know if they even agree with what they are writing or what they are publishing. But for me, doing non-fiction books, it's important that once I put what AI said together with what I say into the book, it has to be something I agree with. So in a way, it has to come through my filter of my wisdom for it to be valuable for people. And I would say in the beginning, I think I did publish a few books that I might not have really agreed with, but I was excited about being able to publish. But over time, that is a process I going through. Like, I get more and more into the details of what am I actually publishing and what is actually being said in the book and how is it structured in the book, and even things like the cover design and the blurb in the back and all that stuff. It's all a part of how do I communicate a certain wisdom in a certain way, and now it's publishing books. So I have a say. It's not just an automatic process.
Absolutely. So we can say that, or we should say that, Kim is a wise man, and a wise man is trying to fill in his knowledge gap and taking the help of AI,
Yeah,
because
that's that's a
you
beautiful
have
way
to
to say it.
It is the way, because you
Yeah,
see, how would otherwise you know what AI is saying is relevant?
right. That's
To
so very
understand
true.
that relevance, you have to be a wise man, especially when you are talking about love and relationships and everything, all that humans seek so ardently about all this.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's very true. I really cannot create anything that is beyond my own wisdom, even if AI helps me out. That's just not possible because I wouldn't be able to understand it. So it's a relationship, but I am learning stuff, not so much about the deeper wisdom, but how to formulate things. So sometimes I put a question into AI, it comes back with something. I'm like, that's a really good way of saying it, and then I integrate that wisdom, you can say, right? It's not a deeper wisdom, but it's a formulation. It's a way you craft your art. So in that way, AI is just an amazing tool for you to be more sharp about your messages. I feel it's a very good tool to use. And I'm sad when people reject it as something that's artificial, not working for you, because it is artificial, but you make it human by interpreting it. Right? That's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. But do you have to write that is AI created? For example, if I ask AI about, say, rocket science, it
Yeah.
will tell me about rocket science, except that I will not understand anything about it, even
Yeah.
if it explains me. So I am
Yeah.
not I'm not wise enough to understand it. But if a rocket scientist puts the same query into it
Yeah.
and get the same answer, he or she will be able to make sense of it and perhaps also use it. AI is
Yeah.
being used by in medical field, also in many other fields. So why don't you take ownership of what the AI writes to you, or you are just very modest about it? You just feel that, why do you have to give it credit to AI when it's about your wisdom at all? A lot of people write through AI and publish it and call themselves authors.
Well, that's a beautiful question. I appreciate that. I first, I think you gave a good example. I would never. I don't think I would ever ask AI for something that I didn't expect to understand back. So what I
Exactly.
do is I do a lot of research. So I use Perplexity for research, and so I go in and for instance, right now I'm working on a book about being single, like how is life as a single. So I go in and I ask about, statistics about what are statistics about being single, how many people are single, how is their life, what's the life quality, and all those things. I ask a lot of questions, and then I take what of the answers that I understand or sort of are curious about, and then I use that as an outline for my book. So yeah, I would never ask about rocket science because it wouldn't help me anything. So that's one answer. I would say the reason to take credit for it, that is, you know, even when I started with doing the internet and dating site, I was always like a little bit on the front of what's happening. Even with videos, I created small clips, 15-second clip video way before Instagram was around. So I've always had this tendency to be a little ahead of the curve, what most people are. And I think creating these non-fictional books with AI is a little bit ahead of the curve. And so we don't really know yet I don't know how to label myself. I don't even know how much credit I can really take. So I think it's kind of a dance. I think eventually there would be a phrase that I could call myself. Like back when I did web design. Web design was not a word. You were called webmaster. We didn't have the word web design. So over time things change. And it's not that I don't want to take credit, but I admire authors a lot, people who sit and I've read a lot of books and I admire them a lot. People who sit and they contemplate every single word they put into that book. And I don't want to take credit for that because that is not really what's happening, right? It's not that I don't read everything and I can take things out and I can edit it, but I didn't create it from the beginning. So it is more like a collaboration with AI, then I'm an author in that way. So do you know what I mean? So I'm not really sure what to call myself yet, actually.
Yeah, but maybe you can ask AI itself and maybe do some plagiarism check, and you will find that it is all yours. Otherwise, you see, it's like someone saying, have water for this. Now, the same wisdom has been passed out for millions and millions of
Yeah.
years. So that what happens to this is universal wisdom. Love and relationships and everything are all mostly universal wisdom. Nobody can claim that they are the original creator of this particular thing. Maybe the way they want to say it, so it's a very, until unless it's a book written by such a famous author or a quote which someone has
Yeah.
just put it into it. That is why, see, that is a lot of debate happening in terms of artificial intelligence, the creation by copyright and laws. All those things are yet to evolve, not many. And by that time, we'll come to know that millions and millions of books floating around are actually written by artificial intelligence. Be that as it may, tell us how are these books doing in the market? Are there takers for such books written by you?
Yeah, I've gotten some good feedback. I would say, I haven't done a whole lot of marketing. I spend my energy actually crafting the books, and I can't help myself. I just every time I have a chance, I sit down and think about a new subject. So I'm really excited about that. And so the marketing is still new for me. I think they're selling okay, and as I said, I get good feedback. But my sense is that once I start to do more feedback and also people know me more, I think it's just about marketing more than it's about value. I think the value is definitely there because the few people that I have talked to who have read it and given me feedback has been very happy with it. And I would also say that what have changed, which is important, is that even within the last 6 months, the way the language that you get out of AI is way better than it was in the beginning, where there were lots of fluffy words, and it was too much, and it was clearly AI. Today, a lot of people wouldn't be able to see the difference, and I think that makes a difference in how people like the books, if they feel that it's not a machine who's created it, but it's a person. And I think that helps too in the way they like it. Yeah.
Right. Tell us a bit about Wisdom Manual Skin. Is it the name of the series of these 20 books?
So as I said, I actually published 28th, right? The 28th book I just published. The name is just a label for all my books, and
Okay.
in the name it kind of says that it's the book for dummies. I don't know if you know the for dummies. They were very popular in the US, and it was sort of a little bit like that. It's like a manual for wisdom, so it's like it gives you advice in a very I would say easy way to understand. So again, so you become a little wiser or become a little more conscious about your own life. So that's just a label for the books, for all the books I'm making. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, how many books do you have? Any target that you are there, AI is there, and the
Yeah,
ideas are
I
there?
do. I do have a target, and it's a very high target. My target is to be one of the first people who create a bestseller with the collaboration of AI. That's my target. And I don't have a number of books, but I feel that every time I create a new book, it's a little better than the last one. So, I'm keep going up in quality and in content. And so eventually, I think my goal is to hit a place where it can become a bestseller.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure that can happen. That should happen. And my feeling is that will happen. Be that as it may, there is so much to learn from you, from you, and about life and love and relationships, about dating. For those people who would want to connect with you, Kim, what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, my name, kimaronson.com, is my website. And I also have wisdommanuals.com. So I can search, if they search my name online, they will find me for sure. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I would
With
be
this,
happy to hear from people. Really, I would love to hear from people.
absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.